of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer or reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. Jared, please take roll.
Ms. Bennett.
Here.
Mr. Bekowski. Here. Mr. DeMarco. Mr. Dewar. Ms. Filiaggi.
Here.
Mr. Fatulis. Here. Ms. Hallam. Mr. Klein.
Here.
Mr. Macy.
I'm here.
Thank you. Ms. Nacarati-Chapkus.
Here.
Mr. Palmieri. Here. Mr. Palmacina.
Here.
Ms. Pritzio.
Here.
Mr. Walton.
Here.
President Katina.
Here.
And Mr. DeMarco is now with us.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nacarati-Chapkus, I believe you wanted to make a statement.
Thank you. So as many of you know, the community of Plum and all of those who consider themselves neighbors, friends, family, and co-workers of its residents suffered an indescribable tragedy. We lost the lives of 6 beautiful, kind, compassionate, and hardworking individuals who will never be forgotten. At the risk of excluding someone, and I sincerely apologize in advance, I would like to publicly thank the hundreds of individuals who responded that day, as well as those who continue to provide and offer support. The multiple Allegheny County departments, County Executive's Office, Fire Marshal, Emergency Management, and Department of Human Services. The Borough of Plum, Plum EMS, and the Plum Volunteer Fire Departments, Holiday Park, Renton, and Unity, as well as the volunteer fire departments of Brackenridge, Delmont, Export, Indiana Township, Kinloch, Larmer, Logan Ferry Heights, Lower Borough, Monroeville, Munhall, Murraysville, New Kensington, North Huntington, North Versailles, Oakmont, Penn Hills 2, 3, and 7, Pitcairn, Rosedale, Rural Ridge, Sardis 78, Slickville, South Buffalo 220, Turtle Creek, Upper Burrell, Washington Township, West Leechburg, Westmoreland 56, Whitaker, White Valley, Wilkins Township, Wilkinsburg, and Wilmerding. Lower Burrell EMS 135, Penn Hills EMS, Murraysville Medic 1, New Kensington EMS, Allegheny Health Network and UPMC Medics, the Salvation Army, and the American Red Cross, as well as the thousands of individuals who have donated their time, their support, and/or their funds by participating in community events and fundraisers to support all of the families impacted by this devastating event. May those who have departed rest in peace. They will be forever in our hearts and never forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, all of Council's thoughts and prayers obviously go towards you, Michelle, and the community of Plum. It's a great tragedy what occurred out there, and you have the full support of this entire council and whatever you need for your district.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll have proclamations or certificates 12780-23.
A proclamation recognizing Coriopolis Borough Manager Ray McCutcheon for being awarded the 2023 Distinguished Service Award, sponsored by Councilmember Katina.
Ray, you want to come up? It's a pleasure today to be here and have this gentleman standing next to me. I've known Ray for a long, long time. Goes back to my days as being a treasurer, secretary, vice president of the Char West COG, and heading out to Coriopolis to see everything that was going on, obviously. And over the years, Coriopolis has just blossomed, and thanks to the council and the mayor, and of course, the man behind the curtain doing the daily job of running the town. So I'm just elated to give this to you today. So without further ado, whereas the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs has been serving boroughs across the Commonwealth for more than 100 years. Each year, the Distinguished Service Award is given to an individual performing distinguished, meritorious, and I'm having problems tonight, and exceptionally outstanding service to the citizens of his or her borough and to promote a better borough government overall. And whereas Mr. Ray McCutcheon recently earned the distinction of being named the 2023 Distinguished Service Award recipient, whereas now entering his 12th year as Coriopolis Borough Manager, and in dog years, I mean, as a borough manager or a township manager, that's a long time, obviously, to be with somebody. So it's part of the legacy that 136 years in the making. As a fourth-generation Coriopolis resident, Mr. McCutcheon's ties to the town date all the way back to its founding, when his great-great-uncle was the first borough secretary and signed the first ordinance in 1887. Really think about that, 1887. That's how deep Ray's roots go back. Whereas Mr. McCutcheon's pride in his birthplace shines daily through the dedication of his work, his sound fiscal management, spearheading the reduction of blight in Coriopolis, optimizing banking and public works, and ultimately setting up the community for success, as I previously said. Whereas Mr. McCutcheon's enthusiasm for Coriopolis and all it has to offer continues to grow. He encourages others to get involved in town activities that best fits their interest and to inquire at the borough office to find out about borough opportunities. And whereas Mr. McCutcheon is the point person and is accustomed to managing many projects, but one he is particularly excited about is the new Riverfront Park. And whereas he's not in office, he's the family man that enjoys spending time with his wife of 41 years, his daughter, and his son Ryan, and his grandson Leo. Both of his children are educators, a fact that brings Mr. McCutcheon a tremendous amount of pride. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Allegheny County Council President Pat Katina, do hereby congratulate Mr. Ray McCutcheon for earning the 2023 Distinguished Service Award, and I sincerely thank Mr. McCutcheon for his distinguished service and his outstanding contributions to the community. Thank you, Ray, and congratulations. Present it to you. Would you like to say it?
Sure, I'll say a couple things. Thank you, Council, for having me tonight. What an honor it is to be here. My job is very easy because it's my hometown. Like, I love seeing it prosper. It's been a wonderful 12 years. There's always a couple bumps here and there, but we've done well, and there's a lot of things going on. I have a couple council people here tonight. We have a great support group. I've been lucky to have a council that their main goal is to see the town do well. And it's been a wonderful ride. Hopefully I get a couple more years. 64 years in Coriopolis, I need a couple more, and then I'll be ready to call it a day. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Pat, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Picture time.
No.
Do the council members want to come up as well? You want your wife,
Bring all your people.
I don't know if my wife will come out.
She can have her phone call Jared, he really likes it. How many weeks?
Every time.
What's that? You're going to do it. Okay, cool.
No.
All right. And right here. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2. Okay, ready? No, use it. 3, 2, 1. remaining proclamations will be read into the record. Eric, go ahead.
12781-23, a proclamation recognizing the life-saving actions of Jason Rule, sponsored by Councilmember Pritzio. 12782-23, a proclamation recognizing Willa A. Neal on her retirement from Northland Public Library, sponsored by Councilmembers Betkowski and Filiaggi. And 12783-23, a proclamation congratulating George and Mary Batico on the occasion of their 50th wedding anniversary, sponsored by Councilmember Palmieri.
Okay. Any public comment on agenda items?
Oh, yes. We have several individuals who signed up. First up is Tom Pike, followed by Sam Schmidt and Ashley Deemer.
We'll see. I don't hopefully, unless you get sick from like.
Afternoon, council members. My name is Tom Pike, and I live in Forest Hills. So my comment is for Councilmember Walton, primarily. As a constituent, I'd like to voice my strong support for Bill number 12695-23, which would require the county to put together a climate action plan by July 2024. So, in the fight against the climate crisis, this ordinance is one of the last remaining pieces of low-hanging fruit. Many other governments in our region have climate action plans, so this ordinance would bring the county into step with Pittsburgh, Mount Lebanon, Forest Hills, and many other municipalities, as well as the state of Pennsylvania. So the county's not going to be going out on a limb if they enact this ordinance. And it would also help with some of the smaller municipalities, like my municipality, Forest Hills, coordinate their efforts. As for why to do this, our air quality is among the worst in the country. The residents in 2021 experienced 52 days where the air was not healthy to breathe, even for residents with no medical conditions, according to the Group Against Smog and Pollution. This ordinance alone wouldn't fix that, but it would be an important next step. If this sounds a little familiar, that's correct. I made some of these same points when you were considering the parkland fracking ban and the clean procurement ordinance. So I hope we're on the same page that those bills were good. They're not going to be enough to stall the climate crisis on their own. This won't be enough either, but it is also good, and it's what I believe we have to do next. So it's not the last step, it is the next step, and it's important. Now, the promise by the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission to create their own climate action plan is not an excuse for inaction by this county. The SPC has a history of delaying and impeding transit projects that would lower emissions and making plans and proposals that shift money away from Allegheny County. Their timeline would not likely be as quick as the one in this proposed ordinance, and their plan is not likely to be as good. Based on where power lies in the SPC, their plan would probably concentrate the benefits, both in terms of economic and air quality, in the surrounding counties, meaning, among other things, that almost all the African American and Latino population region-wide would be excluded from those benefits. I'm glad SPC wants to make a plan, but I don't trust that it will be good, so Allegheny County should make its own. I have a hopeful vision of the future, and I invite you to share it. So I bought my first house last year. I closed on April 19th, 2022, and as of July 15th, 2023, no fossil fuels are burned anywhere in the home. I'm running out of time, so I'd just like to say that if any of you are curious how I did that on a part-time salary, because I'm not a wealthy person, this is not a luxury of the rich anymore, this is a reality that we can live in right now. Imagine what the county can do with the resources of the county if I can do that with my home. So if any of you are curious, you want to swing by and see all the cool technology I've got in my basement and on my roof, look me up after. Thanks for your time.
Sam Schmidt.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sam Schmidt, and I stand before you today as a concerned mother and resident of Allegheny County. I appreciate the opportunity to address this council about a matter of paramount importance to me and countless others in the community, our environment and the urgent need for action against climate change. As a mother, my primary duty is to ensure a safe and healthy future for my child. I cannot tolerate the inaction of our government when it comes to addressing the pressing issue of climate change. The scientific consensus is clear. We are facing a climate crisis that demands immediate action and comprehensive solutions. Lip service without action will literally cost lives. I implore this council to adopt a measure that will set in motion the creation of a robust and effective climate action plan by July 2024. This plan must not be a mere formality, but a strategic framework firmly rooted in the latest data and recommendations from the IPCC climate change reports. Our response to this crisis must be based on the best available science. Your plan must be enforceable, specific, measurable, and time-bound to be meaningful and have any value to this community. I also urge you to address the dire state of air quality in our community, particularly in the Mon Valley, immediately. Poor air quality has far-reaching implications for public health, exacerbating respiratory illnesses and reducing overall well-being. It is our responsibility to provide clean air for our residents, present and future. Our children should not be asked to breathe particulate matter that puts them at higher risk of illness and disease than cigarette smoking, along with other unknowns that accompany repeated exposure to unsafe air. We cannot afford to delay any longer. Every moment we hesitate, the impacts of climate change worsen, affecting vulnerable communities and ecosystems. By taking immediate action, we not only mitigate the severity of these impacts, but also demonstrate our commitment to the well-being of our constituents instead of prioritizing the comfort and revenue of Allegheny County's biggest polluters. Creating a climate action plan is not just an environmental imperative, it's an ethical obligation to our children and grandchildren who deserve a planet that can sustain their dreams and aspirations. We have a unique opportunity to lead by example, to innovate, and to show the world that we are serious about preserving our environment for future generations, or at the very least, keeping it habitable. I urge you to adopt the proposed measure without delay and to ensure the climate action plan it sets in motion is driven by the urgency of the situation and guided by the rigorous science laid out in IPCC reports. Let's work together to safeguard our community's future, to protect our children's health, and to leave the legacy of responsible stewardship for years to come. Thank you for your time and your commitment to a better future for Allegheny County.
Next up is Ashley Deemer, to be followed by Matthew Mihalik, Angela Wiley, and Elise Silvestri.
If you could start standing up over here so that we can just go through the people, please. Thank you.
President Katina, members of council, thank you very much for allowing us to speak tonight on the county's proposed climate action plan ordinance. I'm Matt Mihalik, the director of the Breathe Project. We're dedicated to improving our region's air quality and quality of life, working together with over 65 regional organizations and institutions with science and public health at our core. The daily litany of increasing extreme weather events, extreme heat spells, wildfires, extreme storms, atmospheric rivers, flooding, mudslides, the loss of life and damage to property, all of these are accelerating just as scientists have predicted. The sooner that our county falls in line with what leading local and state government entities are doing to address this ongoing crisis, the better. Air quality issues and climate issues are also tightly intertwined. Both impacts come from the same root cause, the ongoing use of fossil fuels that produce particle pollution, ozone, heavy metals emissions, hazardous air pollutants, volatile organic compounds, and of course, global warming emissions such as natural gas leakage, carbon dioxide production, nitrogen oxides, black carbon, among others. People in the Mon Valley already have air that's worse than 93% of the entire country for fine particulate matter. Allegheny County is in the top 1% of all counties for cancer risk from point source air toxics emissions. 90% of this risk is attributable to integrated steelmaking facilities such as the Mon Valley Works, which also happens to be the largest carbon dioxide emitter in the county. Recently, New York University School of Public Health documented the improvements of health in communities near the Shenango Coke Works in Allegheny County after it closed in 2016. Average weekly visits to the local emergency departments for heart-related problems decreased by 42% immediately after the shutdown. This is what happens when burning fossil fuels at major outdated industrial facilities can be curtailed. It's time for Allegheny County to set a course to reduce our climate emissions. Allegheny County should have its own plan to pursue its goals, which can be done in coordination with other regional governing bodies. But please hold on to your power in setting a course so that you can pursue goals for the entire county. Our county residents will benefit from committing to this course of action because our county's health will improve, our county's quality of life will improve, and our county's reputation will improve. Thank you very much.
Angela Wiley.
Good evening. I'm Angela Wiley. I'm a children's librarian, and I serve on the board of Communitopia, which provides climate change education that develops today's climate leaders and advances equitable solutions in Southwest PA. So I'm speaking on behalf of notes that our board gathered together. Communitopia is pleased to support the introduction of a climate action plan, version 3.0. Similar to work that Communitopia did in the Woodland Hills School District, the Climate Action Plan provides a roadmap for a healthier and more resilient county for all. And it's critical to focus on vulnerable communities, the board consensed. So focusing on people, places, will help to create innovative, sustainable, and inclusive action. We're happy to see a focus on resiliency and would like to support equitable responses to climate change that prioritize underserved communities. So not just equal opportunities for every single community. Flooding, landslides, heat-related illness, and death are going to impact lower income communities the worst. And so focusing on that equity and response should take that into account when facing climate change impacts. The benchmarking data is encouraging and will be key to showcasing both successes and improvements that are needed as time goes on and new consequences arise. And a focus on stories can also showcase practical and innovative case studies and help everyone learn from each other. So communities do, I think, need visionary stories and resiliency stories in order to continue facing climate change impacts and coming up with solutions together. There's a lot of anxiety around climate change and a lot of negativity and sadness. And I think Communitopia really works on encouraging positive and solutionary ideas. So we do support adopting this plan to lead to more positive future and to create resilient approaches together. I'm 32 years old, and I was a youth climate organizer, and now I'm an adult being an ally to youth, and that feels really important to note. And I know there's a lot of people older than me here who have been working on this even longer, but it's time.
Next up is Elise Silvestri, to be followed by L. Ray Roberts, Deborah Smith, and Naomi Swerdlow.
Hello, County Council. My name is Elise, and I live in Highland Park, and I'm here to voice my support for the creation of a climate action plan. So as a young person who will be around for the outcome of our present inaction on climate, the fact that we don't have a climate action plan for the county is like genuinely ridiculous. And you'll be hearing from quite a few of us today about this, and it's really easy to zone out, but I ask that y'all really pay attention because what we're talking about today will be spoken about in history of choosing between action and inaction. And to help things be more interesting, I want to spotlight some council members that seem to know what they're doing on this. So I want to start with Councilman Walton. I am your constituent, hello. So I left Councilman Walton a voicemail last year about banning fracking in public parks, and he returned my call, and I remember this. I remember this because I was learning how to drive, and my dad was in the passenger seat, and he was like, oh my gosh, you're returning my daughter's call, and he had nice words to say about a politician. So shout out Councilman Walton. He has been an activist for most of his life, which I admire deeply, and us activists stay educated. And Councilman Walton, like as a member of the Sustainability Committee, I'm sure you have a good idea of how the climate crisis is going to affect Allegheny County. Heavier rainfall, more flooding, landslides, not fun. And we know climate action is what's standing between stability and that uncertainty of how our environment will affect our day-to-day lives, or even life or death for underprivileged communities. So a vote for making this climate action plan is one that prioritizes the good of the people. I also want to shout out Councilman Macy, who I was reading your bio and I was so surprised. You have been doing just transition work that us climate activists have been talking about back in the 80s. When the mills were closing, providing social support and vocational training for transitioning workers. That is awesome. And to me, it shows that you understand that we cannot leave people behind in a changing world. A climate action plan is about being prepared by understanding where we are now and where we need to be and how to get there. Even though this region will be affected by the climate crisis, it's projected to be one of the most livable areas in 50 years, which means we're gonna have more climate migrants coming in. And our climate action plan will need to address that as well, and yet another reason that we need one. And my last point was touched on by my friend Tom Pike, which is that the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission is writing their own version with consultants, but this commission has a history of leaning towards fossil fuel infrastructure. And to have a climate action plan that clearly addresses this moment, we don't want investments in things like carbon capture that allow business as usual. We want to transition with real investments. So pass an action plan that works for us. Thank you.
L. Ray Roberts.
Next.
Deborah Smith.
Can Naomi stand up too if you're here and line up? And Neil, Naomi and Neil, you're on board next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Smith, and I'm a resident of Allegheny County. I would like to comment to you today as a constituent, a Climate Reality Pittsburgh and Southwestern PA leader, and a member of the Mount Lebanon Environmental Sustainability Board in favor of this bill. It is past time that our county create a strong climate action plan by 2024. Pittsburgh undertook this action 15 years ago. Municipalities like Mount Lebanon, where I live, have climate action plans of their own. For too long, too many have refused to take action. It is time for Allegheny County to act on climate to protect our residents, communities, the environment, and especially our health. We are all witness to the increasing litany of extreme weather events. Wildfire smoke we are forced to breathe, rising rivers and flood levels, mudslides, and damage to our properties. All things that climate scientists warned us would come. Allegheny County already has some of the most horrific air to breathe in America. The county ranks among the worst 1% of counties in the U.S. for cancer risk from industrial point source air pollution. 20% of Allegheny County communities are comprised of residents who live at or below the federal poverty level, communities where 30% or more residents identify as people of color. People in the Mon Valley already have air that is worse than 93% of the entire county for fine particulates. And here comes wildfire smoke, mixing with this already horrific air and particles, hazardous air pollutants that are absorbed directly into the bloodstream of residents. The Center for Climate Integrity recently released a report that carefully calculated the exorbitant cost that communities will face in climate change by 2040. More than 2,000 municipal governments across PA face more than $15 billion in climate adaptation costs by 2040. From hotter weather and heavier rain. The city of Pittsburgh alone is looking at an estimated bill of $522 million. This ordinance would not fix our air quality, but it is a step in the right direction. Air quality issues and climate issues are closely related. Both impacts come from the same root cause, the ongoing use of fossil fuels that produce particle pollution, ozone, heavy metals, hazardous air pollutants, and volatile organic compounds. It is time to save lives, reduce the burden on our most vulnerable residents, and take action that can move our county into the right direction on climate change. Thank you. I'm also going to leave you with the world's littlest book on climate 10 Facts in 10 Minutes by the Chautauqua Institute. Now, who doesn't have 10 minutes?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd just like to say before we go on, if you don't need to use your 3 minutes, kindly save them, because I'd like to, there's a number of members that have prior commitments tonight after the meeting, and I'd like to get the vote on the record, obviously, while everyone's still here, since that's why the majority of you are here. So try to be as quick as possible, obviously, in your public comment. It would be appreciated, so we can get this vote on the record and done. So thank you. Go ahead, Jared.
Next up is Naomi Swerdlow, followed by Neil Desai and Edward Wren.
Hi, everybody. So do y'all need to like stand up and stretch for a second, or are you okay? Oh, okay. Well, as long as I can have y'all read my statement, I'm going to cut it short, okay? And I feel that I should also thank some of the other council people, including my own, Paul Klein, Anita Prizio, Tom Doerr, Bethany Hallam, and Liv Bennett, and I'm sure the rest of y'all are on board too, and thanks for being here and your attention. So I'm just going to cut through this and thank some other people, and they are some of our educational institutions, including the award-winning Woodland Hills Schools Climate Action Team, Grow Pittsburgh's Learning Garden Program, Pitt Center for Sustainable Business, Scott Institute for Energy Innovation at CMU, and Chatham Eden Hall Campus, and Green Building Alliance, Phipps Conservatory, Tree Pittsburgh, and some of our local foundations, Ecotone Renewables and Pitt Moss, which are rising businesses, and that's it. I love the Hayes Woods. Thanks for our dearly departed Rachel Carson, and of course the Breathe Project. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up will be Ilyas Khan, followed by Christine Graziano, Marin Cook, and Patricia DeMarco.
Good evening, folks. Ilyas Khan, Swissvale 15218. Hi, guys. We've been here before, and once again, the people of Allegheny County are turning to you, entrusting in you their power to make sure that you lead us towards a better future. They're not asking SPC to draft a climate action plan. They're not asking Rich Fitzgerald to draft a climate action plan. They're actually not even technically asking you all to draft a climate action plan, because I unfortunately can't imagine any of you wanting to stand outside and check air quality readings for hours on end in order to collect data. No, they're asking you to ask someone else to draft a climate action plan. So please do the right thing and use the leadership powers that you have that are being entrusted into you by your constituents to pass a climate action plan. Not this year, next year. Just do the asking today. That's all we want right now. We're gonna come back later for the rest of it, okay? I wanna highlight in specific some things that I think you should know, because I don't understand why anyone would possibly be against this. For each and every one of you, there is a reason why this plan behooves your constituents and therefore behooves you. Councilmember Walton, you mentioned last summer how important to you your communities of color in your district are. It behooves you to have a plan of action to make sure that your communities are being addressed in regards to environmental racism in an equitable, fair, and engaged and accountable way. Council members Macy and Klein, both of you have communities along the Mon Valley. That area, that stretch of land is so heavily air polluted that it behooves both of you to vote yes on this and on the plan in the future to ensure your residents have clean air and water. Many of you have dense urban areas. These are heat islands. It behooves each and every one of you to protect your senior citizens out here today. It was 81 degrees outside, but here, outside of the county council building, it felt like 100 because we're living in a heat island. If you want to protect your senior citizens, vote yes today For many of you in rural areas, many of you who represent rural communities, if you want to make sure that those communities are being allotted the resources that they deserve when there is a natural disaster, a heat dome, a serious threat to the point where people are begging you for aid, this plan can help you coordinate all of that. But we're not asking for you to write the plan right now. We're just asking for you to ask for it. Vote yes on 1295-23 tonight. Thank you very much. I yield.
Christine Graziano.
Hi, good evening. Everything he just said. Thank you for your service, everyone here. I'm here as a resident of Squirrel Hill North, and I also want to thank you for being brave and putting forth this ordinance and for your willingness to embark on a plan of this nature. It's more than timely and more than urgent to move ahead with thinking about how we can act in actionable ways to mitigate climate risk and to make our communities more resilient, and how we as a county can stop our dependence on fossil fuels and contributing to a warming that is impacting us and the globe. It's worth noting that as I say this, my parents are holed up in a hotel after evacuating their community as a hurricane approaches in Florida, as my husband's colleagues recover after their island was partially destroyed by wildfires in Maui, and as other friends are still searching for permanent accommodations after their homes were destroyed on Sanibel Island not too long ago. So we all know climate change is real and impacting us now. As anyone who's participated in plan making knows, there is so much to learn in the process of making a plan alone, and the rewards are not just the end point if done properly. As you vote yes to provide for its development, I urge you to design the process so that air pollution and climate action are essentially interchangeable. We are so well positioned as one of the areas slated by NASA as expected to be livable in the near future, in the next 20 to 50 years. Other areas are going to suffer from heat, from weather events. We should not miss this incredible opportunity to provide us all with guiding and actionable principles and steps that we can all participate in, from government agencies to individuals. I came because not everyone can, and I acknowledge that privilege. I'm here to speak for myself and my family, especially my 10-year-old son and his generation. When I asked him to join me tonight, he said to please let you know that he fully supports this, that all his friends think that we are running out of time and or have run out of time, and they don't think anyone is doing anything about it or not enough. I can corroborate this as an after-school instructor at a local school last year, that this is the overriding sentiment of his age group, unfortunately. He also noted, which I pass along here, that he's sure you will understand why he didn't attend, that he would rather play and spend time with his dad. After all, he's just being a kid. Please vote yes today. It is our jobs as adults to get this done. Thank you.
Maren Cook.
My name is Maren Cook. I live in Pittsburgh. I'm a planetary scientist by training, but now I do environmental education and activism because it's necessary. Today, we're seeing Florida about to get hammered by Hurricane Idalia, described as a once-in-a-lifetime storm for the Gulf Coast with 12-foot storm surge as of much earlier this afternoon. Idalia is gathering more strength because of the elevated water temperature in the Gulf of Mexico, similar to a hot tub. If you've gone swimming in Florida, I actually haven't gone swimming in Florida in probably 60 years, but it's not a hot tub. It's not supposed to be that warm. And I did a whole research project in grad school on how atmospheric vortices are caused by a heated surface. The warm air goes up, conservation of angular momentum, like a ballerina or an ice dancer spinning up as they draw their body parts in, causes the hurricane to get stronger, more powerful winds. The warm water causes more water to go up. This wasn't even in my written remarks, but I feel it incumbent upon me to explain that in a hand-waving way. But I can only imagine what those hot tub temperatures are doing to the marine life in the Gulf of Mexico and around Florida and the humans that depend on it. Last week, that's today, we got Hurricane Idalia. Last week, Maui was devastated by unprecedented wildfires. Last month, and continuing, Canadian wildfires in northern Canada, leading to terrible air pollution here and elsewhere. Right now, it's in North Dakota. But for the most part, air pollution, which we suffer from mightily here in Pittsburgh, is caused by fossil fuel combustion. So you solve climate, you solve air pollution. The relatively stable climate we've had for millennia is being violently disrupted because of the rapid redistribution of fossil carbon. Millions of years of deposition being extracted and emitted into the air in just a couple of hundred years, more than half in the past 30 years. After a slight dip at the start of the pandemic, fossil energy use, especially coal, rebounded with vigor in 2021. That's the wrong direction. Allegheny County, often touted as a center for innovation, is woefully behind the 8 ball. Many counties in Pennsylvania and around the country have climate action plans. As we've heard over and over again, we need overall to reduce greenhouse gas production by 50% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. The Pittsburgh plan is a good start. It needs to be made stronger. Some are even more ambitious than this. Montgomery County, Maryland has a strategic plan to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035. Basically, the more emissions we can cut sooner, the better. While continued technological innovation will be able to help, carbon capture and sequestration and blue hydrogen are not the answer. They're energy intensive and result in more fossil carbon being released than if we just burn the gas in the first place.
So if you could wrap it up?
Yes, I will skip to my last sentence. I have 2 children now in their 20s. Many of you have kids and some grandkids. What kind of a world is their generation inheriting? And the rest of my remarks are on the paper.
Thank you.
Which I'm going to add my hand-waving explanation to right now and then hand it in.
Next.
Patricia DeMarco, followed by Melanie Mead, Achillian Bray, Juan Lingau, and Timothy Kelly.
Next. Akin, or?
After Patricia DeMarco would be
Melanie, I'm sorry. Not here.
I'm here. Yes, I'm Melanie.
You're Melanie, okay.
Thank you. I want to thank you for having this opportunity for us to speak. I'm Melanie Mead. I was the last living immediate relative of my family, having buried everyone from 2011 to 2020. I live next to the USX Clairton Coke Works. I was grateful that my mother left my father, and I was educated in Jameswood, Virginia, which was 30 miles outside of Washington, D.C., where I was able to study climate change. And because of that, I know what environmental justice is. In the city of Clairton, our children do not know what environmental justice is, nor do they know what a climate action plan is. So I really need you all to take this bill 12695-23 serious, because our children and our families are dying and are at greater risk than many, and you all have the power to change this. Our little children experience coughs that are not attributed to air pollution or other climate change issues. They are suffering at great numbers, and they don't even know it. Our teachers don't have an education plan to talk to our students about climate action, nor do they talk to them about environmental justice. So it is great to hear youth who know about their environment and how to take care of it. When our children graduate from Clairton High School, they're told to leave so that USX can continue polluting and harming our health. The fires that took place, I watched that day, and I heard the sirens that poured out all day during the fires. And those fires took place at 3 in the morning. We were informed 1 o'clock the next day. We need you all to really be serious about your jobs. This isn't hogwash. This is serious stuff. Everything that I was taught in 9th grade high school in Jameswood, I would not have been taught in Clairton. They're still not teaching it. So please, please do me a favor and honor Bill 12695-23, making it a law. So our mayor can't say, that's just steam. It's pollution. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Time is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kellyanne Bray.
Hello, everyone. I'm Juan Lingo. I hope it was my turn. I'm from the city of Pittsburgh. I live in Homewood. And I expressed my endorsement of the Climate Action Plan bill. And I want to tell a little story. I'm originally from Mexico, and I moved to Pittsburgh in 2017. And one of the concerns that I have while moving here is that I have never experienced a real winter. And Pittsburgh did deliver. But I've heard from long-time Pittsburghers that ever since, winters have been milder and milder. And I'm sure that you have experienced that same feeling as well. That means that this climate change is affecting us. It's an immediate reality that we can all feel. And now, one of the things that I like about living in Pittsburgh is that we are very close to nature. Surprisingly, compared to the places, the dry and warm places that I lived in Mexico. I can watch deer and groundhogs and other wildlife from my window, and I live within the city limits. And that's unheard of in Mexico, and I like it. And I would like my future children and generations to continue enjoying like that. I've also had new experiences that wasn't as pleasant here in Pittsburgh. Earlier this summer, we had a gray air and toxic fumes that actually were coming from Canada. So it wasn't Allegheny County's fault, but we don't want it to be next. And with the trends of warming up, well, I'm afraid that might be the case. So that's why we need this plan. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Timothy Kelly, followed by Meredith Felda, John Detweiler, Shannon Dickerson, and Thomas Allen.
I think you're the only one of the group. Tim Kelly? Meredith?
Yeah.
Meredith, you're next. Meredith and then John.
Good evening, County Council. Excuse me for being a little choked up. These comments have touched me, and I hope they touch you too. My name is Meredith Feldy. I live in Oakland, Pittsburgh, which is Councilman Walton's district. And as a constituent, I'd like to express my strong support for Bill number 12695-23. Both Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh have already created climate action plans. Bringing Allegheny County in on the deal would strengthen and bolster the climate action plans that already exist within the county and would set a precedent for other counties that are lagging behind to march in lockstep. We are all children, witnesses, and stewards of this planet and this land. I cannot emphasize enough the urgency with which every one of us is called to take radical action against climate change. I'm entering my last year at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm looking into a future where economic collapse, rising sea levels, drought, disaster, and famine threaten my livelihood. We like to talk about the future we're building for our grandchildren and our children, and that's all very important, but it's closer than that. It's our lives, it's our parents' lives, and it's our living grandparents' lives. I need to see the Allegheny County Council take every possible measure to protect its constituents from climate catastrophe. Bill number 12695-23 is the first step. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. John?
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm John Detweiler, a 77-year resident of Allegheny County, and I'm in Mr. Klein's district. I'm speaking in favor of the bill, and I thank the committee and Chairperson Prizio for bringing it affirmatively to council. I hope it passes. But I want to look past tonight's vote to what such an action plan might say and how it's going to be produced, because that matters. We can't have just any action plan. The climate crisis is spurring us to action, but it's also bringing out hucksters and profiteers who are trying to turn our fears into their profits. Words matter,
and what's in the plan will matter. For example, the slick language of decarbonization, which is the notion that some region, any region, in and of itself needs to somehow reach net zero emissions. You can try to make that sound reasonable, but it's the logic of the cat in the hat. That logic says that because we have too much of one thing, we need to go find too much of its opposite to even things out. Unlike Dr. Seuss, decarbonization isn't just childish nonsense, it's propaganda with a purpose. You can see it in a strategy paper last year from the Allegheny Conference. What it says to our communities, in effect, is that because we were rolled over by a natural gas invasion, we should now roll over for a new invasion of hydrogen and carbon capture to even things out. That may be great for their business, but not so good for anybody else. And that's just one of the self-serving arguments that will be made as this climate action planning goes ahead. So for the sake of our communities and our climate, we need a transparent and open planning process, not closed-door meetings with business interests, technocrats, and razzle-dazzle presentations. And an open process means ongoing public engagement around the table. It's way, way more than what we can do at times like this with a parade of here's 3 minutes, get it off your chest. So please pass tonight's ordinance, and let's get to work, and let's do it together. Thank you.
Shannon Dickerson.
Next.
Thomas Allen.
Shannon Dickerson.
Oh.
I am not speaking about the same thing as everyone else, so I don't want to cut people off. I'm here to talk about the EATS Act. Hi, my name is Shannon Dickerson, and I live in the city of Pittsburgh. While I'm speaking today as a representative of an organization whose mission it is to advance animal protections, my opposition to the EATS Act is not solely of ethical concern for those animals considered to be livestock. The EATS Act gives DC the power over our local communities to dictate what's best for our farmers. It has been touted as a partisan bill, with some Republicans in favor and most Democrats objecting. However, this is a false dichotomy, because the EATS Act sits in contradiction with the conservative belief in a balanced separation of powers by granting excessive authority to the federal government over states and local governments' agricultural affairs. The EATS Act would undermine fiscal responsibility by burdening states and local governments with additional costs, regulatory challenges, and legal battles, and would put foreign conglomerates, specifically China, in control. The act will strip power of state legislature, particularly state agricultural committees, to pass laws that benefit farmers and ranchers in the state, and overturns laws and standards that support minority, women, and veteran-owned food businesses which have been put in place to help families in communities who are often left behind. I applaud all of you who value our local communities, our state's rights, and our moral obligation to good stewardship of our resources by voting in favor of this will of council. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thomas?
Hello, I'm Thomas Allen. I live in Lawrenceville, so Councilmember Bennett's district. I'm here to speak in support of making a climate action plan bill 12,695-23. So when I first heard about this, I was like, wait, what? Allegheny County doesn't already have a climate action plan? Like, that's insane. I know the city of Pittsburgh already has one. I know several other municipalities already have one. I was actually dumbfounded when I found out the county just doesn't even have a plan. It's totally bonkers. Because Allegheny County has higher emissions, carbon emissions, than like several very large countries, more than several. So just the food system alone, for example, from like research from CMU, emits 3.7 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. So that's more than all of Puerto Rico, just the food system here in Allegheny County, which Puerto Rico has over 3 million people. That's more than the entire country of Niger, which has 20 million people, or the entire Congo, which has 100 million people. It's absolutely insane. I mean, Allegheny County is one of the largest contributors to the climate crisis in the world, and for the county to not even have a plan is just absurd. I didn't really want to be here today. I'm a Pitt student. I've had like a long day of classes, but I had to show up to make sure the council does its job and actually makes a plan. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, climate policy low-hanging fruit. So like there's a very large number of people here in Allegheny County that don't want to drive a car every day, don't want to have to drive a car to get to work or to get groceries, but they feel like they have to because transit frequency is not sufficient or because there's not enough bike lanes or biking isn't safe enough. So we can make very huge strides in climate action with very little effort and expense. So no-brainer options there. There's like probably close to 0 people that actually care how they heat their house. Like they just want it to be heated in the winter, right? So no one would be against having a heat pump installed in their house, but that's not something that's happening at even close to the scale that needs to happen here. And that's because, you know, people rent or it's just not subsidized or whatever. And as people mentioned, we do need community involvement in the plan. This can't be, you know, a plan that's just not actually in accordance with reality. Like I read the Allegheny County Sustainability Report from 2022, and the county was bragging about the fact that it bought a truck that ran on natural gas, and I thought that was pretty absurd because fossil fuels are like why we're even in a climate crisis. So clearly the plan has to have community involvement. It also has to actually be followed. But for there to not even be a plan in the first place is just unconscionable. So please make the plan, pass the bill. Thank you.
Next up is Lucina DeBarbaro.
Next? Oh, she's there. There.
Thank you, council people, for this opportunity. I really appreciated many people's comments, and I'm here again in support of creating climate action plan, and especially think about what this plan could mean for us, like in specific terms, how it could distinguish investment of money into projects that do or do not reduce CO2 emissions or methane emissions. And this differentiation is the critical aspect of creating a plan, to be able to select actions that result in reductions of emissions, because without those reduction of emissions, we will not get there to reducing climate impacts. In fact, they will be accelerating, right? So there are some areas in which obviously the county government has direct control over its buildings, over parks, and I know there's plenty of possible actions there, but you will be at the table and for decision making with others in this region, the city, Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission, about how the larger sums of money that are coming from our federal government will be invested. So to be able to know whether you are investing in the right things to achieve the climate action and climate results is the main reason to create such a plan. And I will give 2 examples from sort of like in which I was involved as one as an activist trying to advocate for green infrastructure solutions and for our sewer overflow problem, right? So combined sewer overflow. This is Allegheny County-wide problem. Alcasen is more or less on the road to create a lot of gray infrastructure to understand how that impacts climate and how much the emissions contribute to this, to our problem versus the green. And the other area is the area of energy efficiency in housing. So Allegheny County also is involved in distributing funds to create affordable housing. And as I worked in that area, I measured some of the efficiency of finished projects, and they were not efficient. They were barely made to the level of the efficiency of other houses in Allegheny County, which is not efficient. So we are investing $100,000 or $200,000 of public money, and we are not making big enough of a difference in those homes to set the better, to achieve much better efficiency, to set the direction for how the county proceeds.
If you could wrap it up, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Phoebe Reese.
Did you say Phoebe?
Phoebe.
Okay, all right. Hi, I'm Phoebe Reese. I'm a resident of O'Hara Township here in my personal capacity, 15215, proud constituent of Anita Parisio. Thank you. This is why we elected you and re-elected you, and why I don't know if you can run again. I don't know if you can run again, but I've still got your sign in my garage because recycling. And thanks to the Sustainability and Environment Committee for passing this ordinance unanimously and bringing it here tonight to the whole council. Look at that. I'm a parent of 2 young girls, and today was the first day of school. My oldest had her first day of middle school, and I'm not having dinner with them to hear how it went because I am here. That is how important the climate action plan is to me and to them and to their future and their health. So thank you tonight for using your leadership and your power to do something for them and for us and for our elders, as people have mentioned. And creating a climate action plan, it means addressing resiliency, but it also, basically it means we're committing to reduce our county's emissions. And this is so sensible and practical and economical, not to mention our moral responsibility. And here's why. Emissions are just waste. Emissions are trash in gas form, okay? They're inefficiencies. And those inefficiencies and that gaseous garbage is expensive. We pay for it today. We pay for it every day. Here's the money we spend on emissions. Emissions, of course, result in elevated lighting and heating and air conditioning bills. If you have an air conditioner, because we didn't build air conditioners in a lot of places because we didn't used to need it. Emissions cost us money when we have to build asthma clinics in our schools because the asthma rates and the air pollution is so bad, and the elevated cancer risks and the respiratory diseases. It costs us in lost learning days due to excessive heat. Pittsburgh Public Schools now has a excessive heat day policy. That's defined as days above 90 degrees. It costs us from landslides and flooding. Allegheny County in the last couple years had to develop a landslide registry. Landslides are expensive. We're paying for that now. And the flooding. The floods took out my kids' favorite park. We had no baseball field for 2 years. It just opened up during COVID due to a huge storm around July 4th in O'Hara Township and surrounding that. Those floodwaters also went down the hill to my kids' classmates in Sharpsburg, wiped out their homes. That's expensive today, and it not just the cost of their homes, but things that can't be replaced, like family photo albums, so I'll wrap it up. I'll just say my kids have to clean up their messes. It's not fair to ask them to clean up ours.
Diane Peterson.
That's it.
Emily Donato. Nope.
Nope.
James Logue.
Nope. That's it then.
We did have one individual who signed up untimely. Robert Axon.
Robert Axon, are you here? Go ahead.
Well, Ray was on the list earlier, so he's.
2 more though.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you all. It's an honor, and all of you to hear all of your thoughts and emotions. I've been in Pittsburgh since '78. I'm an engineer by training, mostly involved in renewable energies and projects in different countries. So I want to limit my comments to just 2 points, hopefully clear. And I hope that anybody who disagrees with me will work with me to prove that I'm wrong. The first is that I advocate that you divide your plan into 2 parts. The first part has to do with the pollution in the county that affects health. That's a serious problem. It's a big disgrace. We need to address it. But that's a local problem. The other problem of global warming, climate change, is a global problem. And what I've come to believe is, with respect to that side of the problem, the only way we, as people here in Allegheny County, are going to make a difference is to develop innovations which can spread around the world because they're economically feasible and competitive with fossil. And if we don't do that, the problem will not be solved, no matter how much we use titles of global warming and climate change. So that's my 2 points, divided into two. One is local, one is global. And the global one, of course, is harder, and we have to have a procedure for developing those innovations. Pittsburgh has a history of innovation. We can do it again.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
My name is Reverend Jeffrey Thomas.
Did you sign up?
Yes, I did, but I did not. My administrative assistant signed me up.
Okay. Well, let's. You're not on the agenda, but we'll let you go.
Okay, well, I'll sit down.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Sure. My name is Reverend Jeffrey Thomas, and I live at 127 Ritchie Avenue, Pittsburgh, PA. I'm a constituent of Councilwoman Bennett. Matter of fact, I grew up in the neighborhood that she now lives in, if I understand it correctly. Honorable members of County Council, I'm here this evening very briefly because my faith tradition, Christianity, has several things that I think, that I know are important to this discussion, regardless of one's denomination. The Bible tells us that after God created all things, that he, on the sixth day, created man or humanity in the representation of both Adam and Eve. And in Genesis, it further tells us that he placed them in the garden to be caretakers, to care for it. That's the first thing. Secondly, my faith tradition tells us that it shows us of the saving grace of nature, and it also shows us the destructive nature of nature. The saving grace. It tells us in Genesis as well in Exodus, specifically as it relates to the salvation of God's people being liberated from slavery in Egypt, it shows us of the saving grace of nature in the waters being parted, the Red Sea. Now, it also shows us of the destructive nature of nature in the flood. So based on those two things, we, in my faith tradition, understand that we have an obligation to care for this earth. So I encourage you, I want to thank you very much for putting together this bill, and I want to encourage you on the basis of principle, regardless as to where you stand religiously, on the basis of principle, that you recognize that this legislation makes us caretakers of the earth. Thank you.
My name is Ray Roberts. I'm a constituent in County Council 10, Councilman Walton's district, and over the last few years I've had the pleasure to get to know many of you, Liv, Jack, Tom, Bethany, and I especially want to thank Anita. Thank you. Putting this together, I want to thank the fact that this came out of the committee with a unanimous vote. Thank you very much for that. And a few things that are really down to the brass tacks about this. The IPCC, International Panel Climate Change, this international body has highlighted a report for policymakers. It's 35 pages. I strongly encourage you all to read it, okay? 35 pages is not that heavy a lift. I assign that to my students all the time, all right? So please take the time to read that because it highlights the central urgency of what we're asking you to do. been doing a lot of driving, you know, and I want you to think about if you were driving, how many times in the past couple of years have you been caught in a torrential downpour? The extreme rainfall has been truly beyond what we should have seen, all right? This rainfall has led to extreme flooding. The flooding is one of the impacts. Heat is the other. We have construction crews from the county who are going out, and the heat is deadly. Those are the two significant consequences the county council is having to face. And because we didn't already have a plan, this past year there was money from the federal government that we didn't get. There was no plan. You don't have a plan, you can't put in for the money. Now, the urgency is extremely real. I want you to think about if a tree falls and it's far enough ahead of you, you have plenty of time. Put the brakes on. Climate scientists have been absolutely unanimous in exclaiming that this is a hair-on-fire emergency that we need to address. And the time for us to be able to address this before the absolute worst consequences of climate crisis hit us, you know, we are really, really close. That tree is not falling far down the road where we have plenty of time to brake. That tree is falling like right now, and you have barely time to make changes that are going to protect this county, to protect our children. And it is absolutely essential that we do not leave money on the table. That money from the federal government requires a plan. Please be ambitious in making this plan truly something that is going to electrify the bus fleet as fast as possible, that it is going to set out ambitious housing commitments, as we've already heard. Your ambition for this plan is imperative, and the clock is ticking for us to be able to make these changes. Climate scientists have told us you've got basically 5 to 6 years right now.
If you could wrap it up, thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I will not have approval of minutes 12796-23.
A motion to approve the minutes of the August 15th, 2023 regular meeting of council.
Make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. No presentation of appointments this evening. Unfinished business. Committee on Sustainability and Green Initiatives for the second reading. 12695-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, providing for the development of a climate action plan by the Allegheny County Department of Sustainability no later than July 1st, 2024, sponsored by Councilmember Pritzio.
Councilmember Pritzio.
Hello, and I'm going to be very short. I just want to thank all the speakers for coming. Thank you for being so moving and so impactful. So I don't need to say anything more. So on 8/22/23, which everyone has already said, the Committee on Sustainability and Green Initiatives met and unanimously moved, amended, and affirmatively recommended the ordinance. So I move for approval.
Second. Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion? Anyone wanting to say anything?
I would like to.
Council member?
But I've kept them short because we've heard from so many folks. I keep cutting as we keep getting down the list. But I feel obligated, given my professional work in the environmental field for nearly 30 years now. So we are in, as you heard this evening, a moment of crisis. The World Health Organization states that climate change is impacting human lives and health in a variety of ways. It threatens the essential ingredients of good health, clean air, safe drinking water, nutritious food supply, and safe shelter, and has the potential to undermine decades of progress in global health. Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year. The direct damage costs to health are estimated to be between $2 and $4 billion per year by 2030. We are only 7 years away from this. According to scientists at NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, In New York, July 2023 was hotter than any other month in the global temperature record, which goes back to 1880. Large precipitation events evidenced by increased flooding and extreme heat days is happening right now. Northeastern cities are likely to experience some of the highest numbers of heat-related illnesses and deaths, which results in lives being taken and displaced and property damaged. Longer pollen seasons lead to new and increased allergy days as well as asthma exacerbations. And as we know, agriculture is a major contributor to our economy, and food insecurity due to climate change continues to be a real threat. Talk to our local farmers about the changes of crop seasons also impacted by climate change, as well as increased air quality action days due to the mix of ozone and air pollution. Colleagues, this is the direction of our future, for the sake of our community's health and that of future generations, as well as the environment in which we live, work, learn, recreate, and play. We must not delay action. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? My mic's, I don't think my mic's, yeah, it's working. Anyone else this evening? Hearing no one else, just one comment from me. Hard to believe that before I took the term as president, we didn't have a committee on sustainability and green initiatives. A county as big as Allegheny not having something to think about the future. We sit on stage here, all of us right here tonight, but we didn't have the foresight to think ahead. And I don't think anyone could make me prouder than what Councilwoman Pritzio has done with that committee. So without further ado, let's call the vote.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Betkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
Absolutely.
Ms. Nacarati-Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill passes.
Congratulations, Anita. You need to take a bow, I think. Thank you for everyone for coming out tonight to show your support for this, by the way. I know it's not always easy getting down here, but thank you for your efforts. We'll now have liaison reports. Councilman Macy, I believe you wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, members of council, and especially our enthusiastic audience. I serve on the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission as well as the Sustainability and Green Initiative Committee. Yesterday, the SPC had a meeting, and we voted unanimously for the SPC to be a single point of contact. Now, keep in mind, those are 10 communities surrounding Allegheny County. This plan will not only not be anyone's plan. It'll be a collaboration of scientists, people who understand this problem, as well as experts and elected officials. Some of those who have no skin in the game, per se, as the metropolitan area of Allegheny County. So, if you should have any questions or you have any thoughts, comments, please send them to the council here or send them to the SPC, or do both, because this is very important, and this is a very, very important issue to the SPC, and they're going to get on it immediately. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure if this question is in order, and you can close it. Councilman Macy, are the SPC meetings open to the public?
Yes, they are.
Are they published as to when and
You
location?
go to the website and get the minutes.
Thank you.
Anyone else this evening? Hearing no one else, we'll move on. New business ordinances and resolutions, 12784-23.
An ordinance authorizing the County of Allegheny through the Department of Public Works and the Law Department to acquire by condemnation a temporary construction easement over one parcel of land identified by the Allegheny County Department of Real Estate as Block and Lot 1870P310, required for the Bailey's Run Wall Reconstruction Project at Station 166+25, located at Bailey's Run Road, East Deer Township, Allegheny County, a project included in the 2023 Capital Road Program, and to take such further actions may be necessary under applicable law, including but not limited to the eminent domain code, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to Public Works, 12785-23.
An ordinance authorizing the County of Allegheny through the Department of Public Works and the Law Department to acquire by condemnation a permanent right-of-way in fee simple and a temporary construction easement over one parcel of land identified by the Allegheny County Department of Real Estate as Block and Lot 1570N323, required for replacement of a deteriorated bridge designated as the Douglas Run Bridge Number 19, located at Round Hill Road, Elizabeth Township, Allegheny County, and to take such further action as may be necessary under applicable law, including but not limited to the eminent domain code, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will also go to Public Works, 12786-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing Allegheny County Budokai to continue to use a structure in the county's South Park for martial arts activities, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
And that will go to Parks, 12787-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing Mon Valley Express Drum and Bugle Corps to continue to use a structure in the county's South Park for marching band and music-related activities, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will also go to Parks, 12788-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing South Park Theater Incorporated to continue to use real property in the county's South Park for theater-related activities, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will also go to Parks, 12789-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the county's acceptance of the donation of 1,475 feet of 5-inch fire hose from the Seville Volunteer Fire Company, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to Public Safety, 12790-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the county's acceptance of the donation of 50 Miller Revolution harnesses, 50 Miller Turbo T-back personal fall limiters, 10 double back biter with soft stop, and 10 single back biter lanyard with soft stop from the United States Steel Corporation, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will also go to Public Safety, 12791-23.
A resolution of the County of Allegheny amending the grants and special accounts budget for 2023, submission number 02-23, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to Budget and Finance, 12792-23.
A resolution providing for a program of temporary exemption from county real property taxes for improvements, including repairs, construction, or reconstruction made on industrial, commercial, or business property in a deteriorated area in the city of Pittsburgh, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, pursuant to the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to the Committee on Economic Development and Housing, 12793-23.
A resolution ratifying certain year-end transfers pursuant to Section 805.03 of the Administrative Code, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to Budget and Finance, new business, motions, 12794-23.
A motion of the Council of Allegheny County urging the United States Congress to defeat H.R. 4417 and S. 2019, collectively known as the Ending Agricultural Trade Suppression Act, sponsored by Councilmembers Pritzio, Klein, Hallam, and Dewar.
Councilwoman Nakaradi Chapkus wants to be added to this, by the way, so if...
Point of privilege, I do as well.
Anyone else? Okay. Does anyone object to not being added? Everyone good to be added? Okay, put everyone on. I assume everyone, did you want to say anything on this?
I could just, I think Ms. Dickerson probably explained it best, but so this is to ask we're going to urge the Pennsylvania congressional delegation to oppose the bill, which is known as the EATS Act. If enacted, years' worth of legislative victory for farmed animals on the state level could be jeopardized. In fact, the bill's broad language could impair local regulations designed to protect local agriculture, protect dogs from cruelty of puppy mills, and preserve our environment.
And you'd like to make the motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Councilman DeMarco?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. With any type of bill or piece of legislation we pass, the devil's always in the details. And the reason why some of the folks proposed this EATS Act is because they didn't want states like California to be able to pass a law that would mandate producers in other states to have to follow it. But just as I said, the devil's in the details. The language in this bill is so broad that so many other laws that have been passed in states for the protection of companion animals, things of that nature, could unduly be affected. So for that reason, I oppose this bill on the fact of its language and not necessarily the intent. So I'm happy to vote yes on this motion with Councilwoman Prizzio's motion.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? No one else this evening? Do we need a roll call vote, or? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. 12795-23, I'm going to withdraw that. Notification of contracts.
We've none.
Public comment on general items.
We have several. First up is Donna McManus.
Good evening. My name is Donna McManus. I'm the president of the Carrick Community Council, and I want to bring concerns from the Carrick community regarding the county's proposed homeless shelter located at 2230 Brownsville Road. The most important concern is safety. The house designated for this shelter sits between two Pittsburgh public schools in our community. Concord Elementary K-5 is a neighborhood school in which most children walk on Brownsville Road to and from school. Carrick High School students riding PRT get dropped off in the PM and picked up in the AM at the corner of Parkfield Street and Brownsville Road, which is 6 houses from the proposed homeless shelter site. Even the most dedicated staff for a homeless shelter cannot prevent the incidents that occur when a facility like this is in a neighborhood. Public urination, aggressive panhandling, open drug use, psychotic episodes, littering, and lewd behavior are issues that would require police. Carrick is already experiencing many of these issues due to the disproportionately high number of unlicensed sober living houses and boarding houses that are spread throughout our community. Zone 3 Police Station is responsible for handling the 911 calls for Carrick. This police station is severely understaffed to handle the 911 calls for the zone, given that the south side requires manpower and resources, which leave the residents on the hilltop like Carrick to have to wait longer times for officers, even if they respond at all. Some of the crime stats for the last month in Carrick, just a few. We've had 12 criminal miscomplaints, two DOAs, 18 harassment complaints, 3 overdoses, 5 simple assaults, 5 theft from auto, and the list goes on, and that's just in 1 month in the community of Carrick. The Carrick Community Council is working hard to revitalize our neighborhood, and with the stroke of a pen and an RFP from the county, opening a homeless shelter at 2230 Brownsville Road will undo the progress that we have made thus far. Thank you.
Next up is Laura Doyle.
Hello, Council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm Secretary of Carrick Community Council. The major issue with the proposal that's been released to operate this homeless shelter is that the community was caught completely off guard. I sent an email that, this RFP was released by DHS at the direction of Council. And I copied you, Councilman Klein, on an email 5 days ago and have not heard anything back from you. And we would like to know, what is the mechanism for input from the community and advance notification for projects that are going to be slated for our neighborhood? This is not popular. Today there are 176 negative comments about this proposal on Carrick Pittsburgh. And because we didn't have any response from you or from DHS, City Councilman Anthony Coghill got us together with the director of DHS and some other city departments. When asked how they zeroed in, I know it's a public health crisis, but there are 900 homeless in Allegheny County. There are 606,000 housing units. How did you zero in on 2230 Bronzeville Road? They told us there are 60 homeless that used Carrick as their last address. Of the 900 homeless people, 60 homeless people that formerly lived in Carrick, chock full of 52 three-quarter houses. Is that correct? 52. So I don't think that that is a good metric for choosing us. I don't appreciate the fact that we were not notified. There is not a single stakeholder notified. We have 7 churches in Carrick. We are the registered community organization for the city of Pittsburgh. You did not notify our school board representative. You did not notify any of the administration at Concord Elementary, 1,052 feet away from this proposed shelter. And the rules about low barrier shelters and harm reduction says you can't do your drugs outside. I mean, in our house, you have to take them from your locker and take them outside onto our streets to do their drugs. No, thank you. No, thank you. So we would really like to develop an advance notification with this county and with DHS on what's happening in our community. And even more concerning is the fact that in the RFP that they released to operate this shelter, they make mention that an additional RFP is going to be released that will seek a provider to make these services, and that provider will determine where the sites would be. Will we get 5 of them in Carrick? We don't know, because our stakeholders are not included in this process. Thank you.
Next up is Michelle Traficante.
Nobody.
It's hard to hear you back. That's probably why all the speakers were like that.
I can only yell so loud.
I told somebody, I said, I'm not the one here with it.
My name's Michelle Traficani. I'm a lifelong resident of Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh. I'm speaking today because I'm confused as to the announcement that DHS has put out an RFP to place a homeless shelter in Carrick neighborhood, just a few doors away from an elementary school. That has to be incorrect. First, there was no notification given to the community for input from the government entity we pay to create accessible, competent human services and to assist and improve health and well-being for all the people of Allegheny County. Beyond the fact that tax dollars are the lifeblood of this government entity and all others, attempting to place a homeless shelter in any neighborhood is beyond comprehension. Let's revisit what precipitated this latest action and analyze what occurred on Smithfield Street at the church that housed the homeless. It was shut down because of uncontrollable lewd and unlawful behavior, defecation on the streets and sidewalks, open drug trafficking and dealing, untreated mental illness, and gun violence are just a few of the unacceptable occurrences. Accountability is necessary. Rules, regulation, and enforcement must be followed to the letter of the law. Creating excuses for illegal behavior is never a solution. All choices we make are accompanied by consequences, and every human being is responsible for their own actions. If the same unchecked problems are just relocated, what will change? The answer is obviously nothing. The answer does not lie in any of our communities, and I'm here to tell you, after talking to many people in the following communities that South Pittsburgh is off the table: Allentown, Arlington, Beechview, Beltshoover, Bon Air, Brookline, Carrick, Hayes, Knoxville, Lincoln Place, Mount Oliver Borough, Mount Oliver City, Mount Washington, Overbrook, Southside Slopes, and Southside Flats. You may want to talk to the residents of your district, though. And let's see if anyone is agreeable to accept a homeless shelter. My guess is the answer will be no.
Next up is Ron Giardini.
Hello. It's the first time I've ever talked to so many people from the suburbs. But I feel like there's some hostility between our neighborhood and what's going on in the suburbs. It's sort of like we're jealous, but I can afford to live in the suburbs. I choose not to. And I know a lot of my friends are the same way. Most of the friends I went to high school with and college, they all live in different states. So there's a problem of the migration. But when I was born, there were 480,000 Pittsburghers in the city of Pittsburgh. That's down from a high of 680,000, I don't know when, in the 20s maybe, to now there's 300,000. So I feel like we're at the center of a donut. We're that hole in the middle, and we have the 2.5 million people in the metropolitan area. We get the drug addicts because it's low rent. And you could document this with the Post-Gazette. There was an article about drug addiction in our neighborhood, and they were talking about all the people that died, and almost all of them came from not suburban Pennsylvania, but rural Pennsylvania, to find low rent in the city where they could find drugs. And my friends who live out in the suburbs say, hey, Ron, why don't you just move out of the city? And that is an option. And that's why we're down to 300,000 now. And I don't know how important the suburbs are to most Pittsburghers. I don't really know what goes on out there that much. But you have to see from our perspective that it's hard for us, and things just happen. It's not our fault that there's more commerce out in Robinson Town Square than there is in all of downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, okay, I love, we all cheer for the Steelers.
Thank you. Next.
Next up is Eileen Papau.
Good evening. My heart goes out to the people of Plum Borough. That's so tragic. And to the environmental people, my gas bill is very sort of over $40 a month, so I know it can be done. I was born and raised and attended school in the city of Pittsburgh, Lincoln-Leamington neighborhood. Over the years, the city, with an emphasis on our southern neighborhoods, has been a mecca for several experimental failed policies. Carrick, which is very dear to my heart, has suffered from the consequences of these disruptions. People who are living on the streets are suffering, and we should definitely help them. But this will require more than just sticking them in shelters where they can linger for years. No goals, no progress. We can't leave them behind. I bet those who back this city location at Carrick do not live in or own a business there. This will not be a positive for any of our southern neighborhoods. Remember, people vote with their feet. It's hard to underestimate the damage done to the Smithfield Street corridor, but Mayor Gainey is stepping up. At one time, Bethlehem Haven was located in the Smithfield Presbyterian Church and served as a part-time shelter for homeless women. I was a volunteer, and it was a very well-organized, safe place, and we assisted women with hygiene, counseling, and handed out clothing, advice appropriate for job interviews, and to give them some goals. How about partnering with another charity close to my heart, Habitat for Humanity, where skills can be picked up, sweat equity put in, and perhaps eventual home ownership, which can be the path to current and future generational wealth. Maybe pick up a few gardening skills, too. Let's encourage public and private partnerships. in service participation requirements 10 years ago precipitated a dramatic increase in homelessness, up almost 20.5% from 2014 to the beginning of 2020, before COVID hit. Both my parents graduated from Westing High School in Homewood in the middle of the Great Depression with unemployment at 23% and a national wealth cut in half. When they married, they lived with my disabled grandmother, 2 other adults, and 7 children in one Leamington house while they saved for an extreme fixer-upper, no furnace kitchen. My dad attended Conley Trade School to learn marketable job skills. We have to teach people skills too, not just warehouse them in shelters. Anyway, Carrick nor any other southern district is the answer. You will just hasten the demise of a good community. I have a special place in my heart for our veterans and disabled, and all care should be given to them. There's a lot of potential out there, and lives can be turned around. Let's focus on the quality of life issues, dealing with the important issue in a compassionate, responsible way. Thank you very much.
Next.
My glasses.
Deborah Huff.
Not here.
Last up then is Elliot Borowski.
Not here. Go ahead. Just come up, state your name and address.
Thank you. Good afternoon, thank you. My name is Rhonda Luffy Graham. My family has lived in the community of Carrick since shortly after the Civil War. I am the last of the Mohegans in the area. I come from a long line of community servants, priests, nuns, constables, teachers, and businessmen and women. I choose, like my friend Ron Giardini, who lives down the street from me, I choose to live in Carrick. I support Carrick with everything that I have. And my dear friend Donna works way harder than I do. I know that there's a homeless problem. You can't leave our community, drive to town, go to church, do anything without seeing people that need help. I hope to be able to help them in some capacity at some point. Putting 13 people in a home that has 4 or 5 bedrooms on Brownsville Road, a few feet from 2 schools, and 2 houses down from a dear friend who bought her family home is unacceptable. There's lots of vacant properties on the 51 corridor, which is also on a bus line. Perhaps one of those buildings could be purchased or rented or renovated and not only provide a bed, but provide some rehabilitation services. So I really ask you to reconsider this RFP. Come to our community, take a walk with us. We live here, we're dedicated to that. It's real easy to look at a map and say, oh, there's a poor community or there's a community in need. We are much more than a community in need. And so with all of that said, I just ask you to reconsider this RFP, join with Donna and her team to look at some alternative sites to help the poor folks that really, really need our help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead. Name and address.
Sure. My name is John Hanrahan. I live at 439 Katoma Street on the north side of Pittsburgh. There's a lot to be done with regards to housing in Pittsburgh. We all know that. We need the heat pumps and the new roofs and the solar panels and everything that's already been mentioned, and shade trees out front. We need zoning reform from the city. We need good cause eviction from the state, and we need money from the feds to get it all done. But at the very least, everybody needs a bed to sleep in at night. That's right. I live on the north side. We have Light of Life. We have YMCA. We have so many different options for emergency housing, for transitional housing. I'm the vice president of the Fine View Citizens Council. I am proud of the work we are doing to develop new subsidized rental and home ownership housing. There's a question as to would you want something like this in your neighborhood? And I am proud to say that on the north side, we are doing our part in this emergency. We are doing our part, and we are proud of it.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move. Can I say something? Nope.
No, I'm sorry, it's been seconded at this point. I'll give you 10 seconds.
We adjourned the meeting, we already motioned in second.
I just want to say,
10 seconds. It's got 10, not seriously. We adjourned the meeting, and I'm going above and beyond.
We have a group that gets together every Friday. We clean up the streets. We walk the streets with garbage bags, with grabbers, and we're trying to keep the community clean. And we even have signs that we put out to let these people know, please don't litter our community. We are proud of where we live.
Okay.
If you do this, you're defeating our purpose.
Thank you.
You really are.
Thank you.
That's all I want to say.
Just for the sake of clarity, though, before the meeting's adjourned, none of this came before this council. This was all put out by the administration. So across the hall is where really that you need to be directing. Okay. I'm not saying whether it's wrong or right, but none of this, we got blindsided tonight by all of you basically coming here because none of us and the administration, there's no communication. So there needs to be better communication, I think, moving forward with everybody. So thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Yeah. Yep. No problem.